Well, it's not really news. The state of Nigeria's healthcare and education sector, two of those indices you find on what you call Human Development Index, if you know what the parameters set by the UNDP, United Nations Development Program, set a number of indices there, about 10 or 11 of them, in ranking how well a country is doing in terms of primary healthcare, for example, in terms of primary, what you call basic education, water, basic water, potable water. It talk about sanitation and a few other things. Those basic things that humans really need to live and raise children and things like that, including maternal mortality. And Nigeria hadn't really fared really well on that UNDP HDI. It wasn't really news yesterday that Bill Gates, billionaire investor, philanthropist, and Microsoft founder, used the opportunity of the special session of the National Economic Council to remind Nigeria about where the roof is leaking. He says, well, the government is doing well, investing in roads, rails, bridges, and other things like that. But he says all this will come to nothing if the government does not ramp up investing in human capital. Let's take a listen to Bill Gates, what he said at that event. Take a listen.
Our biggest office in Africa is here. We've already committed over 1.6 billion in Nigeria so far. And in partnership with the government, we plan to increase our work here. We have a strong relationship across the board at the federal level, state level, businesses, NGOs, and civil society organizations. We're eager to support you as you work to make Nigeria a global economic powerhouse that provides opportunity for all its citizens. I'm impressed how much Nigeria has changed in the past decade. One example is the technology sector. The energy I talked about during the early days of Microsoft, our passion and our willingness to take risks, that same energy now powers technology hubs across Nigeria like Co-Creation and Inspire. The novelist Chimamanda Adichie, whom my wife especially admires, captured the country's spirit when she said her fellow Nigerians have big dreams and big ambitions. The line graph of Nigeria's per capita GDP shows where those dreams and ambitions can lead. With the exception of the recent recession, the slope goes up. As a result of this growth, Nigeria is now the biggest economy on the continent. You're rapidly approaching middle-income status like Brazil, China, and Mexico. But growth is not inevitable. Nigeria has unmatched economic potential, but what becomes of that potential depends on the choices you make as Nigeria's leaders. The most important choice you can make is to maximize your greatest resource, the Nigerian people. Nigeria will thrive when every Nigerian is able to thrive. If you invest in their health, education, and opportunities, the human capital that we're talking about today, then that will lay the foundation for sustained prosperity. If you don't, however, it is important to recognize there'll be a sharp limit on how much the country can grow. We see this risk in the data. From the point of view of quality of life, much of Nigeria still looks like a low-income country. Let me give a few examples. In middle-income countries, the average life expectancy is 75 years. In lower middle income, it's 68. In low-income countries, it's 62. In Nigeria, it's lower still, just 53 years. Nigeria is one of the most dangerous places in the world to give birth, with the fourth worst maternal mortality rate in the world, ahead of only Sierra Leone, Central African Republic, and Chad. 1 in 3 Nigerian children is chronically malnourished. It may not be polite to speak so bluntly when you've always been so gracious to me, but I'm applying an important lesson I learned with Aliko Dangote. Recently, Aliko and I were having a conversation with governors about their state's official immunization rates. Aliko's way of stressing the importance of accurate data was to tell us, I didn't get successful by pretending to sell bags of cement I didn't have. I took from that while it may be easier to be polite, it's important to face facts so that you can make progress. On immunization, we're already starting down that path. Last year, Nigeria revised its immunization cover numbers downwards to more accurately reflect the truth, and I applaud that. Things may look worse, but they're more real, and it's the first step towards saving and improving more lives. I urge you to apply this to all your investments in people. The Nigerian government's Economic Recovery and Growth Plan identifies investing in our people as one of 3 strategic objectives. But the execution priorities don't fully reflect people's needs. Prioritizing physical capital over human capital with a very limited government budget. To anchor the economy over the long term, investment in infrastructure must go hand in hand with investments in people. People without roads, ports, and factories can't flourish, but roads, ports, and factories without skilled workers to build and manage them can't sustain the economy. In preparation for this visit, I asked a research partner at the University of Washington to model Nigerian economic growth under 3 different scenarios related to investment in health and education, which are the core of how economists define human capital. Here you can see Nigeria's per capita GDP growth from 2000 until today. If current education and health trends continue, if you spend the same amount in these areas and get the same result, per capita GDP flatlines, with economic growth just barely keeping up with population growth.